interview advice. Probably the number one reason people come to my channel, other than to hear my charming voice and hear my silly jokes, which aren't very funny. But that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about 3 common interview questions and how to answer them.
Next Level Coaching.
Hey, I'm Jim Kelly with Next Level Coaching, and I'm here to bring your career to the next level. Well, while you're here, gently hit that like button, gently hit the subscribe button. We wouldn't want to hurt your phone, but we would like to see this channel grow. So today we're going to be talking about 3 common interview questions and how to answer them. I am not going to give you the verbatim answer to give. I am not ChatGPT. I am going to give you the strategy on how to answer it so that you can answer it well without having to wait for a delay. So without any further ado, let's get into it. The first question we're going to talk about today is walk me through your resume. Now, this might seem obvious to some people, and other people's going to be, oh, well, I'm glad we're talking about this. So when I see that, hear that question, my immediate thought is, this person doesn't know how to read. Let me read it to them. No, that's not the correct way to answer it, as much as my little heart wants it to be. No, the correct way to answer it is we want to tie what we've done to the role we're going for. And we also want to explain why we went from role A to role B to role C. Well, maybe XYZ firm went out of business, so we left role A because we literally couldn't work there anymore, right? Or, I went from, being in marketing. I didn't like marketing, so I went over to the sales side of things. I didn't really like sales. And then I went into copywriting. I love copywriting, and that's why I'm sticking in this profession and moving to this role with you. Sometimes people's career path isn't as linear as we would like it to be. Sometimes it's, I was, an analyst, then I went to an associate, then I went to a vice president. Now I'm going for an executive director's role. Very, very, linear path, and they're all in the same field. Great, fantastic. That's a, pop up that's going 3 miles an hour that anybody can catch, right? But sometimes you're hitting that line drive that's wiggling in the air, and we have to figure it out from there. So that's where we have that nonlinear path, and you have to tick and tie. And I picked up this skill doing this, and I thought that was very appropriate. Like, myself, I spent about 16 years teaching martial arts, right? And does that relate to anything in banking? On the surface, no. But when you get into it, I learned a lot of skills about reading people because, in order to teach, you have to read people's body language and eyes to know whether they're actually picking up what you're putting down. Because otherwise, you're doing a terrible job teaching, and no one's going to want to pay for that service. Same thing comes with my career coaching. I have to tie that back into my banking as well when I'm interviewing for roles, which is very, very interesting to do. So just because your career path isn't the neatest, tidiest thing in the world doesn't mean there's not a logic to it, and doesn't mean you can't explain how it relates to the current role. Next one we're going to talk about is how do you handle feedback? My immediate response is, I cry. I cry a lot. I cry all the time. No, that's not responsive. Sorry. But, that might be someone's response to feedback. It's not the best response to give in an interview, but it could be your honest response. But we want to be prepared for this question because it's one that is likely to happen. So what I like to go with is, I'm always open to feedback because the only way to get better at anything is receiving feedback. Otherwise, I think I am the best dancer in the world because I can do the point. No, I'm not the best dancer in the world. And, disco was 50 years ago at this point. So probably not the one to go with, right? Right. But going back to the problem, we can't move forward with ourselves without receiving feedback of some sort. So, you know, it is all about how the feedback is received, because if someone's yelling at you, that's not necessarily great feedback, right? But if they're coming to you and going, hey, I saw you do XYZ, this is how you can improve, that's valuable feedback, and we love that. And so I often make this a dialogue question in my interview, because interviews are not one-way streets. These are not, they're interrogating you and you have a bright spotlight in front of you and you can't say anything. No, that's not how it goes. So if they ask me about how I receive feedback, I'm very open to feedback. I love receiving feedback. Could you tell me a little bit about your feedback style? Well, I'm very receptive. Um, and I always want to grow, because you can't grow without that external feedback. So I'm always willing to have a conversation about things I can improve on, or things you think I'm doing well, because I want to make sure that I'm continuing to do those things. And that way you are setting yourself up so that they know you are open to the feedback, but they also know that you're expecting to have a dialogue about it, not, just them spitting things at you so that you can't actually grow. Can you provide me with a time that you went above and beyond for a client? Now, this is a fun one, because when they say client, your head automatically goes to a customer, right? That's not always your client. Sometimes your client is an internal person you're working with. So if my job is moving things from Gary to Fred, well, my clients are Gary and Fred. Right, makes sense. But, my client, it could be, I receive information from our customer, Joe Schmo, and have to process it over to Susie Q's team. And so my clients then are the actual customer, Joe Schmo, and Susie Q's team. And there could be other teams I'm working with as well who are also my customer, and other external clients, of course. So, I could have a whole lot of clients for that discussion. And knowing that going into this question is going to help you come up with a strategy on how to answer it, because you have to look at your effectiveness across your whole role. And my client could be my manager. My client could be my coworker on my own team who I'm passing things off to. Right? So it's building that conversation around that framework, because when you have the right framework, it's a much easier question to answer. Now, I don't know your career. This is a surprise. I'm a guy on the internet, not, your best friend. Unless you are my best friend, in which case, hey, how you doing? But I digress. Because I don't know that, I can't give you an exact answer here. You have to actually reflect back on your career for how to answer this. But you want to go with things that are going to show you in the best light. I spent X amount of extra time making sure that this was perfect. I, went above and beyond, over met their needs. It is all completely different for every single person. There is no right and wrong here. It is, I might have a better story. And, this is one you might want to run by a friend or a career coach, and, get feedback on how they thought the story went. And tell the story a few times. Tell it a couple times so it becomes natural to have that conversation about it, as opposed to on the interview. Nobody wants that. Make it conversational. The more conversational your interview is, the better it's going to go. So make sure you're having a conversation before the conversation so that things can flow naturally. Because as I often say, interviews are awkward first dates. Just, without any of the romantic intentions involved. So try to make it less awkward and sound natural. So there we go. Three common interview questions that happen in a lot of interviews. Like they don't happen in every single interview. They probably had happen in about 90% of them. But statistically, that's pretty significant. So that's a couple strategies on how to answer them and to make them work for you. Again, always practice your interviewing, because the more practice you do, the better you're going to be at it. Now, practice could be applying for jobs you don't necessarily want so that you can get practice interviews. That's not the best use of, other people's time. It's not very fair to them, but you also might find a role that you didn't, realize you wanted, and suddenly you want it. But having conversation with friends, with mentors, with, career coaches, it's a perfect time to practice interviewing. It is always awkward, no matter how many times you've done it, but you could make it less awkward. So the better, more natural your answers are, the higher your chance of getting that role. And that's always what we're going for, is landing that role so you can move your career to the next level. Insert catchphrase here. But I digress. If there are interview questions you are struggling with, please, please, please put them in the comments. I will gladly make more videos about this topic, because that's kind of my bread and butter. And if you're ever struggling with, interviewing with resume or anything to that effect, feel free to reach out. I am happy to, offer my services. But I hope everyone here is having a lovely end of the year, start to the next year. And you all have a great day, and I will talk to you soon.